Good evening, State of the Federation viewers. How is it going this evening? I am your Armchair Admiral, William Sanchez, also known as Delta Angel Fire, and you're here on State of the Federation, your in-depth strategical look at all the combat you can find in the Alpha Quadrant. I'll be your host this evening. I am the Liberator of DS9, creator of the Armchair Admiral series on Board Game Geek, and one of the devoted followers of the founders. Joining me today, I have Eric. Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Eric Little, otherwise known as E Little on Board Game Geek, which is a very creative username, I'm sure. I am the tournament organizer for our local Star Trek scene, and I participate in some of the other Star Trek tournaments as well. That's me.
Sounds good to me. I already lost my place. Today's show, we're going back to basics, the fundamentals of Star Trek Attack Wing. Action economy, choosing targets, choosing actions. After all that, we've also going to have a section on what do I buy first. For all the new players out there that are just getting in. What ships do you want to focus on? What's good? What can you find? And maybe what do you need if you want to be competitive? All right. Sound good to you, Eric?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. In that case, let's go ahead and get started. Our first topic up is going to be action economy. And, really, the big question here, just to start with, is Eric, what is action economy?
Well, that is a very tough thing to define very specifically. But I guess the basic concept behind action economy would be that on any given round, your ship has one action available to you, and there are other cards and things that give you the ability to take free actions. But a free action here, a free action there, if they don't synergize very well, are poor action economy, what I would consider anyway. The idea there is you have a limited amount of points that you can build a fleet with. You have a limited number of actions that you can take. So the idea is to make all of those actions count and interact with each other very well. And that would be good action economy.
Good action economy, making your every action count. I like the sound of that. But yeah, there's all kinds of different effects in the game, and many of them take care of actions or free actions or not an action at all. Your basic action cards, or just your basic actions in general for Federation, battle stations, scan, target lock, evade. For the cloaking races, cloaking and sensor echo. These are all actions that you have access to regardless. But then you also have upgrades that are improved versions of these actions or give you some other effect, like Spock giving you battle stations when you have your scan, essentially, or Sinon improving your sensor echo action capabilities. Beyond that, we have the free action granters. Free actions from Picard or Martok. Picard gets a free battle station scan, target lock, or evade every turn, no matter what ship he's on, provided, of course, you don't lose your actions by bumping or auxiliary power tokens. By the same token, Martok can give another ship another action, and really, just you can stacking actions on top of actions. Normally, we were talking about one ship gets one action, one ship getting two actions, or one ship getting three actions. You're doubling, tripling the amount of things you can do. Let's see, what other effects do we have? We have continuous effects that happen all the time. Dinatra's a good example. She just gives you +1 attack to all of your other ships that are in range. Uh, Clark Terrell +1 defense to all of their ships in range. Things like that, which just basically they work even if you don't get actions, but they have some other limit to them. So things like Tom Paris, he went with the Voyager crew that passively, continuously +1 agility all the time. Those are pretty great. You don't have to worry about your action count with them. For the trade-off, though, you're usually paying a lot more for them. So generally, a point of agility is like 2 points in a regular ship's cost. Tom Paris costs 4. Or flagships. Flagships cost 10 points. They give you 3 stat points and other bonus abilities. Again, Tom Paris is, more than that. So continuous effects are great. They are great for your action economy since they don't take actions at all, but they're in payment for that, they're being more expensive. Let's see, anything else I have? Triggered effects. Uh, can you think of any triggered effects off the top of your head since I've been talking for like 2 minutes?
Triggered effects. Honestly,
Yeah.
a blank.
So like triggered effects are ones that, they kind of have the abilities of an action, but instead of, spending your action, you're either disabling the card or you're discarding the card to pay for it. So
Okay.
so something like starter set Worf, disable him to reroll all of your attack dice once. So he is good for the action economy in the beginning because you don't have to do anything with him. But after that, when he's disabled, you have to spend an action to get him back up and running again.
Exactly.
hmm So instead of being, straight up, this is an action or not an action, it's kind of a tempo thing. Will you have more actions to recover these disabled tokens and all such?
Well, and that's where something like the Martok captain actually really comes into effect. Is because one of the things that's really difficult to achieve in the game is gaining an extra action, if that makes any sense at all. A lot of the free actions that are available to you are very specific. Ducat gives you either a battle stations or an evade. And you'll find time and time again with a lot of those cards that the free actions are things that are already on your ship's bar. But you have one action available to you each round that allows you to either take something from your ship's bar or to use one of the crew members that are on your ship to take an action to do something really interesting. And that's where, like I said, Martok can come in really good because Martok just gives a friendly ship a free action of their choice. It's not a specific action. It's not defined by anything. It's just action of their choice. Now, given you always have the limitation of you can't take the same action multiple times in a round, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those actions can actually be a really big deal, and that's how you could run something like Scotty and Sulu on a ship together, is if you had some way to do both of those in the same round every round. And Martok's a good way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you were just talking about, Scotty, disable 2 shields, get +2 attack dice, or repair a shield. But generally for the attack, I see him used most often. Sulu, get your 2 defense dice and convert 1 battle stations into an evade with every defense. Like both of these are things you really want to use every turn. There's no real time when you're not going to want to use them. And if they're both on the same ship, you have kind of a conflict of interest. If you only have one action a turn, you have to choose either Scotty or Sulu. And when you want to use both of them the same turn, it's kind of like whichever one you choose, you kind of wasted your points on the other. Now, granted, it gives you, a wider array of options, but I mean, in general, with cards that you want to use every turn, then you need extra actions to be able to deal with them. Um, Things that don't really cause action conflicts would probably be more along the lines of like Miles O'Brien. For an action, you discard him and disable something else on another ship. He's kind of like the get out of jail free card for feds against combo fleets of any sort. Against conditional surrender or against interface generator or cheat death. Like you don't have to use him every turn, and it'd be really hard to use him every turn since he discards himself. But since he's only used in one specific instance, in weakening a strong opponent's defenses of some sort, then you don't really need to budget an action for him every turn. And you can have Sulu every other turn, and then when the one time it comes to use Miles O'Brien, you use him, and then go back to Sulu for all the rest of your turns. But
One of the other things that you could also that you have to take into consideration with actions is you actually have some things that exist outside of what would be your normal action taking sequence. Romulan pilot is something that you do before you take actions. You actually move, then you would use that, get the scan out of it, move again, and then you take your normal actions like you normally would. Cloaked mines are something that they don't take an action to place. It's actually something that you do prior to the planning step. So before you even pick movement, you can just go, I'm throwing all my cloaked mines on the field now. And they don't actually follow the same restrictions that actions take, which is you can't do multiples. When they're outside of the primary action sequence, you can actually do multiples of them.
Hmm. Oh yeah, you bring up a good point actually. The mine, there's three different kinds of mines, and they all use your economy differently. There's the cloaked mines. They don't cost an action. They don't cost an attack. Great for action economy. There's the nuclear warhead. Takes an action and a discard. So it's a one-time use. It has a small impact on what you're doing, but that still kind of balances out with the low point cost and the good damage ability it deals. Dealing damage in place of an action is always pretty good, whereas most attacks, most damage you can only deal with attacks, which is antimatter mines. Antimatter mines are used in place of your attack, and attack something obviously, or even if you're just laying them down on the field, it also uses up your attack for the turn. So using your attack, using your action, or using nothing at all. Using nothing at all is fantastic.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, between conflicting actions, things you want to use every turn. Um, I think we should also mention the scan enhancers, the token enhancers. Spock, uh, what do I want to go with? Dimitri, Breen Aid, and the ones like it. Or I would put in Tactical Officer and Bohica with that as well. See, these ones modify a token, so they're kind of like continuous effects, but it's just a dirty trap because they really aren't. Because if you didn't take the scan action or the battle stations action to begin with, then then they're useless. Yeah, but at least those ones are a little easier to get by with action economy. So Ducat and Picard, they can give you battle stations. So as a free action, the flagship, the Independent Federation one, I believe, is the one that grants an action from the action bar to a ship within range 1. So that could be, depending on what ship you're using, of course, could be battle stations or scan again. And
Yeah.
and well, of course, Martok. Martok can grant you anything. So he's really good for any build that uses a lot of disables, because undisabling is not a free action you get very often, if ever. Using upgrade cards are not a free action you get very often, if anything. Let me think. Can you think of something? Oh, McCoy. Leonard McCoy. He's 3 points. He lets you use one of the actions on on one of your crew for a free action. But he's one of the only ones, and he costs a discard. So
Yep.
there is.
You also have things like the Doctor, and I believe there's a Dominion one that does it too, but I may be making that up. That is the undisable multiple things at once, which is going to be better than trying to undisable one thing at a time.
Oh yeah,
But
the Doctor
typically,
Who.
really crew heavy lists like that are not a standard thing.
Mm-hmm. So things that work great with the Doctor, there have been lists that I've seen. Anything that uses torpedoes, you can use Loger. He is a triggered effect that he disables himself instead of you disabling, a weapon. There is the emergency medical hologram, which instead of disabling a tech upgrade, you can disable him. And he can count as a crew if you want it to be. And then the Doctor, he can undisable all of those at once for one action. So using them didn't cost an action. Undisabling all of them at once costs half an action or a third of an action. So I mean that's a great way to up your economy capitalism. I'll guess I'm calling it.
Sounds good to me.
You want to be capitalistic about your actions, really. I mean, you get one income of action, you want to spend as much of it as you can. Get as much out of it.
Another point too, since you brought up the Federation flagship and speaking about kind of action economy in general, The one stipulation that's weird with the Federation flagship is it very specifically states it has to be a second action. So if you have a ship in your fleet that has Picard or Ducat on it, and you're already getting extra actions every round with it, that actually doesn't synergize well because you've already taken a second action with that ship, and thus that Federation flagship isn't going to get you anything.
Yeah, I've actually had that happen a couple games of people who didn't realize that. But yeah, the very specific wording is second action. That wording is not present on things like Martok. It's just an extra action, or
Yes.
the Strike Force Admiral's orders. If anyone's still using those, that was just an extra action from your bar. We laugh because we got rid of those a long time ago. But there's a tournament in this weekend I know that's still using Admiral's orders,
Wow.
and I'm gonna make them regret it.
Yes, you will. That list you brought for OP5 really was is it OP5 or OP4?
It might have been OP4 or something, but yeah, Picard, Strike Force, Flagship. I think I had Ducat and Martok together. I had like 5 actions on that one ship,
Yeah,
and more actions is great. I mean, we can't. I don't know how we can say it enough. Every action basically increases your ability to attack or your ability to defend by. I don't know what I'm gonna. I'm gonna say like +2 just to throw an abstract number out there. Like if you had 8 attack dice, which you don't get very often, but if you had 8 attack dice with no actions, you're getting what, 4 hits? If you have 1 action with battle stations, your average roll on 8 dice is going to be 2 battle stations, so that's going to be 6 damage now. Or if you used a target lock and rerolled the everything that was blank, you're getting like an average of 6 damage now. If you combine the two, you average like 7.5 or something. I think someone's done the math over on Board Game Geek. I don't have it all off the top of my head, but I mean, really, these things getting that up from 4 to 7 damage for the cost of just 2 actions is a really significant jump. I mean that goes from damaging a ship to one-shotting a ship, especially
absolutely.
if you roll those defense dice, and if you roll like me, they roll up all blanks.
Well, with the shifting meta with some of these bigger ships that are being released, like the Borg or to a lesser extent the Dominion battleship, they require a lot of hits to kill, and you really have to make your damage count because pinging away 2 damage around, I mean, you're gonna die long before you ever actually get to kill anything. But if you can roll 6 dice and make sure that all 6 of those hits count every single turn, I mean, heck, you could even go down even less than that. If you're rolling, I mean, if you're flying a ship that has fewer attack dice, like 4 or 5, as long as you make every one of those hits count, it will make a difference. Very much so. Just 5 dice with no modifiers at all.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's 1, 2 hits around.
And with the number of upgrades that we have available right now, there's a lot more that's offense focused than defense focused. And I want to go into that in a little more, but I mean, just to wrap up the whole action economy thing, keep your ships trim, keep them small. Like you don't having Scotty and Sulu and who else is great? 7 of 9 is awesome, and who else has a great action? We'll say Worf. He's an okay action, even though I never see him played. But I mean, if you have 4 different things that all require an action, then I mean, you're not using 3 of them every turn. So you basically wasted 10 points a turn, which is pretty
Absolutely.
bad. So I mean, put Scotty on something, put Sulu on something else if you don't have some way to grant those extra actions. Take advantage of the free actions you do get. The free scan from Picard worked, or the free scan from the Excelsior works great with Dimitri Valtain or Spock or something like that. But yeah, if you have more than one action on a ship that you can't do all in the same turn, you're probably wasting points unless they're specifically for countering something you're going to run into.
I
Miles.
actually
Yeah.
have a quick point to toss into that too,
Hmm.
since we're doing sort of a introductory sort of video, and a common thing that comes up is conflicting interest of actions. Is if you have something like Spock and Valtane on a ship together, that one scan action does not trigger both of them. It actually only triggers one of them.
Oh, that's right. That's one of the questions that comes up a lot for new players. right in your rule book on page 22. I have it memorized now. In the sidebar, modifying dice is modifying dice or using tokens or something like that.
Yeah.
An upgrades that trigger off tokens can only trigger one token can only trigger one of those upgrades. So you cannot get Spock and Dimitri and Brain Aid all off of one token. You need to get multiple tokens from, Janeway or the Romulan pilot or something like that. But good, I'm glad you brought that out. I almost forgot we were going back to basics. These are our fundamentals. You gotta refresh every once in a while, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, so pay attention to your actions. Keep it trim. Don't take more. Actions are great, but if you can't spend them all at the same time, then you're probably wasting something, and you don't want to waste anything really. This game is pretty brutal at some points as it is. But yeah, moving on from that, let me ask you this: while you're flying in the middle of a dogfight, ready to ready to throw your Klingon warrior weapons at the opponent and screaming honor and all those good things. How do you choose what action you want to use on your ships? Like just give me like a basic scenario or something.
Well, typically, offense is better than defense. It really depends on the situation that you're in, but as a general rule of thumb, it's better to take something like battle stations or a target lock. Again, going back to action economy, it sort of depends on how you built that ship up. If your ship has battle stations available to you, battle stations is great because it increases the likelihood that the initial roll that you make is actually going to do damage. Um, but vice versa, if you're playing something that is more focused on target locking, because Romulan ships with tactical officer really, really love target locking, you're going to target lock every chance that you get. But if you're facing off against the cloaked fleet, you're probably not going to get the target lock. So again, battle stations is going to be a better action there. If you don't have a shot on somebody and you're facing the, because you're facing the wrong direction, evade is always a great action at that point. Trying to think of a situation where evade would be superior. I suppose if it was kind of a last shot of the round, and I don't know, even then I don't know that I'd be willing to risk it sometimes. But if you really think that you're going to be able to knock out that ship with just a regular combat roll, and you're really afraid that he's going to be able to knock you out too, because let's say you both have the same captain skill and you both die simultaneously.
That shot rule.
Maybe that's a situation where if you have a shot, you might want to use an evade.
Mm-hmm.
I would typically take offense actions before I would take an evade. Now, obviously, if I have a flagship that's granting me a free evade or something along those lines,
I'll
sure,
never
I'll take
turn
an
it down, but
a free miss is great. But
oh yeah. But yeah, like you were saying, as a general rule of thumb, offense actions are better. But really, why is that? Is because I think I would have to say because I mean, if you look at an attack die, I'm going to look at an attack die. I do have some pictures. If you look at an attack die, you've got one crit, 3 hits, 2 battle stations, 2 misses. So between the hits and the crits, that's a 50-50 shot of doing damage. The evade dice have only 3 evades, 2 battle stations, and 3 misses. So already the attack dice are going to be just that much a little bit better than the evade dice to begin with because they have more possibilities for hits. When you use actions on top of that, the offensive actions, you re-roll to get more hits or use your battle stations. Battle stations I love a little bit more than target lock because let's say you're rolling 5 dice and they come up 4 hits and a blank, or 3 hits of battle stations and a blank. I'll just throw something out there. If you have a battle stations token, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting one more hit, right? You can actually plan against complete and utter knowledge, which is something I like. I like complete control over what I'm spending on. If you're using a target lock, you're re-rolling. There's a chance that you'll get 2 misses, or 2 hits, or anything in between, or like 2 crits even. So like target lock gives you a chance at more crits than battle stations does usually, or always. But I mean, it's again, you're shooting in the dark. Like, let's say you only need one more hit to kill somebody. Like the battle stations guarantee you that the target lock does not. If you're not even in a position to kill somebody, like you have 3 hits against someone with say 1 evade. You know, some of those 3 hits are going through. Is it really worth the 1 extra hit? You can be like, maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'll save the battle stations for defense. Uh, with target lock, I mean, you already know, like you're not going to kill them. But then the question is, can you save that target lock till next turn and get a better die roll out of it? Because if you had 4 hits and a miss, spending a target lock on 1 dice is kind of a waste. Especially if like next turn you're going to roll 5 dice again, and then you could have target lock and battle stations together.
That is actually a really good point. I didn't even consider that's where you were going with it. I was just going to say, because target locks are a great way to sort of protect you from whiffing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I
But
mean, the amount of use you get out of them can define, you know, when you're going to use them as well. So do you play that gambling game? You know, do I re-roll that 1 dice for that possible 1 hit, or do I save it in case I really whiff badly next turn? So I mean, I think all the offensive actions are great there. The defensive actions, though, you know, evade, cloak. I suppose sensor echo kind of counts in that too, but sensor echo I would count more as mobility. You know, you can either get closer for offense or you can get farther away for defense or try to get out of people's arcs. So I'm just going to stick with like evade or, you know, data who gives you +2 things or Sulu who gives you +2 defense dice. Things like the one-time use ones like evade tokens are kind of the reason I don't like them is, I mean, you know exactly what you're getting, but there are sometimes, you know, maybe you won't even need to use them. And the other part is when you're using defensive actions, sorry, let me start again. When you're using offensive actions, you are pointing the guns at someone. You know who those offensive actions are going to affect. So it's like, if I take a target lock, I know it's going to affect that ship over there. All right, it's going to affect my ship and that ship. If you take an evade action, like it's affecting my ship, but it only does any good if someone actually shoots at me this turn. So let's say your opponent has 3 targets to choose from. If 2 of your ships took evade and one of them took like target lock, well, the easier target is going to be the one that had the target lock. You know. So it's like, what do you think about that?
well, I think one of the other things that's tough with hey, let me restart there. I think one of the things that makes attack a better choice a lot of times as well, on top of all the things that you've already said, is that the vast majority of the cards in the game also enhance your ability to attack. There is no target lock for defense. You know, it's exactly what you said. It's just a one. This is a miss. The target lock could be more than that. And there's really only a few cards in the game that really help you make sure that those evade dice are going to account. Like Gully Vec is a great captain for that. He's a really low captain skill though, and
But that just makes him cheap.
certainly it makes him cheap. But I feel like a lot of lower captain skills, now this is going off topic a little bit, can be a little tougher to pilot than the higher level captains. But he's really one of the only examples I can think of that really makes sure that your misses or that your evades are going to account. I mean, Sulu's nice because he makes battle stations count for it without actually having the battle stations token. You've got Tetrion emissions, but that's just +3 dice. It's not like it helps with making blanks count or allowing you to re-roll blanks or anything like that. There's a few cards here and there that sort of allow you to make one blank a thing, but there's just so many more things that help you with attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maximizing your attack against, against defenses which have a much harder time being maximized, is always better because, if you overshoot an attack, well then you deal more damage. If you overshoot a defense, you don't get hit points back. It's an attrition kind of based kind of thing, I would say.
Yep. Well, and you also have, I'd say, at this point in the game, with the amount of dice that are being lobbed around, and with the cards that exist, we have we have better options for defense now. If you've got things like Shroud, um, Wayoon, the Wayoon conditional surrender cheese that some people are, some people are upset
Cheese.
about it. It's not as big a deal as some people like to think it is, but it's a viable way to defend yourself in a game where defense is not typically an optimal choice.
Hmm.
Using Varel to go, no, that you just don't even get to roll your, those 10 attack dice you're throwing at me with all those really cool, boosts and things that you've set up. No, you don't get to do that this turn. That can really make or break things, and I feel like that's at this point a much more viable option than just relying on the dice.
Hmm. Yeah, and like we were saying earlier, depending on what actions you choose, you were talking about going back to captain skills. Lower skill captains have a harder time getting in early to get their target lock because they move first, but then someone else can move closer to them, and one might have a target lock, one might not. If you have later skill captains, you get to see what actions your opponent is taking. So like if he's going all out defensive, then I mean you might not have to worry about defense as much yourself, and you can focus more on attack. Things like that. Because
Absolutely.
yeah, because I mean one of the big questions is how do you choose what to shoot at? Like how do you choose if you have multiple targets? What's kind of your thought process, and what do you want to shoot at?
Well, it depends on where I'm at in the game, and to be entirely honest, sometimes just my mood. But I'd say most of the time it depends on where we're at in the game. I mean, if it's let's say close to time being called, and
Hmm.
it's been a really tight match. I mean, sure, maybe this one ship is more of a threat, but I think that I'm going to be able to survive until time. So let me take out that small ship and win on fleet points, because a win's a win. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you won. A win's a win there, and fleet points really do matter. Um, I'd say during a match, I think I'm a little more inclined to go toward it's just sort of my whim at the moment.
Yeah.
If I feel like I'm able to one shot a small ship, sometimes I will target a small ship just because it's gone. If
Hmm.
particularly if it's like a support ship or something that's carrying Denatra around and granting two other ships on the board plus one attack die each round. I mean, I don't want to mess with that noise. That ship can go away. um, but there's also an argument to be made that you could also attack the bigger ship and make sure it's gone, so that way then the smaller ship's completely useless. It really depends on kind of sizing up your enemy and determining what you can and can't do, um, how they're playing it. Um, if a big ship's not going to have a shot on me this turn, and that small ship is, and let's say it's got a lower captain skill than me, or yeah, let's say a lower captain skill is a good target at that point too, because you can make sure it doesn't have a shot on you. That big ship that's already shot at me, well, it got a 50% on its die roll, and I took
Hmm.
3 points of damage from it. Okay,
It's already done its attack. When you can
exactly. It already
preemptively
did its
stop
attack. It's
something.
going to get to shoot at me again. If I shoot at the small ship and destroy it, then it's not even going to get to shoot, and I'm not going to take any damage. If I shoot at the big ship, I'm going to do some damage to it, probably not kill it, and then the small ship's going to shoot at me too.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of times it's better to reduce the number of ships that are on the field than it is to spread yourself out, and that's a whole different point. I feel like a lot of times it's better to focus fire on something than it is to spread your attack around.
Oh yeah, one of the things that I see with most new players, that like one of the biggest mistakes I see them make is, you have three ships, you have three targets, but don't spread out your damage because in this game, dealing damage to a ship oftentimes does not affect what that ship does in damage in return to you. So what am I saying? a ship does the same amount of damage at one hull point remaining as it does at all its hull and all of its shields remaining. So what you want to do is, focus fire whenever you can. Make sure you're putting all your damage in one spot to get the most effect out of it, because you want something destroyed, you don't want it down to one hit point and still hitting you as hard as it always does. This is one of those things I think is good against, what am I thinking of? The fighters. The fighters are one of the few ships in this game where if you attack them, there's a good chance you're actually reducing their effectiveness. Every time you take a fighter chip off of that stack, you deal 2 damage, 3 damage, destroy a fighter, it lowers the actual damage you're going to be taking in return. So, like, if every ship worked like that, you definitely want to spread out your damage. But
Well,
since it
certainly.
doesn't, since it doesn't, I mean, there's lesser effects like, the criticals that reduce attack power or reduce defense power, but I mean, you can't rely on those. I mean,
No.
you can't guarantee, I'm going to get 2 crits through to your hull, and they're going to be things that hurt your ability to attack me this turn. Yeah. Of course, it's
But
great
you
when someone
suppose you
draws
could
a.
combine Toreth with like attack pattern Omega or Delta or whatever and make sure they get that Warp Core breach.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
That's
Warcore Breach doesn't help you right then and there. Like, stunned helmsman. Oh my god, if I had to count the number of games I got screwed over because of stunned helmsman. As
yes.
soon as you get hit by that, your next attack does not count. It's like, no, all I needed was 1 more damage on you. It's like giving your opponent a free Varel. That's 10 points worth of card right there.
Yep.
It's like that. That's something that hurts a lot. But, it's not something you can really rely on. But if you have nothing better to do, you can, try to plan a little bit for it, I suppose. If it's a choice between, something, I don't know, something that's not going to do a lot of damage to you and something that is going to do a lot of damage to you, and both of them have, the same kind of defense, survivability, you're probably not going to kill them. Try to stack the crits up on the big guy. See if you can grab that, -1 attack or -1 defense, or the, don't attack this turn, or your captain loses his captain skill or loses his abilities and his talent. There's plenty of good crits in the deck. Sometimes when you're desperate, you just have to roll with it, and hope that the card and dice gods are good to you. But yeah, I mean, choosing what to shoot at, focus fire whenever available. I mean, that's just the first lesson anyone should learn. Shoot something until it's dead. Don't move on to the next one unless, suddenly there's a huge boost in its defense. Like it's cloaked, it's activated Sulu, and it has a battle stations token. I mean, then maybe go after something else. But I mean, yeah, generally that's another problem with choosing what actions to do. If you have 2 ships that are both equally offensive or whatnot, then you go, if one ship uses defensive abilities and your other ship is using offensive abilities, well, the offensive ability is the one that your opponent's going to want to shoot at right then and there. So I mean, you just need to make some kind of measurement to go, like, make the more dangerous ship commensurately harder to kill. So, like, if you have a Keldon class with a cloaking device that's 5 attack, 5 defense, do you shoot that, or do you shoot the D7 that's with it, which is 1 defense die and only 5 hit points and only 3 attack? Do you try to kill the bigger one, or do you try to kill the smaller one? That one's actually maybe more of a hard decision than, oh, I have my cloaked Keldon with the again with the cloak and the battle stations, or I have the Enterprise D, which has no additional defense, but it's hitting me just as hard. Go after the Enterprise D, because no matter which one you kill, you're getting rid of the same amount of hurt that is coming your way.
Well, absolutely. I feel like even the in that specific scenario, I feel like the D7 is an easier choice because the Keldon, the minute it fires on you, the cloaking device is gone anyway, and then it's not going to have all those extra dice to roll.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty nice. So yeah, I mean, targeting priority. Focus fire, shoot what you can kill, and then, I mean, there's really just, experience and judgment is what's going to come into play at this one. After you've played a few games, you start to understand, should I have shot the harder hitting guy, or was there some way I could have, hit this guy and then maneuvered around the other one, or
That's a really good point too, because something like some going back to that previous situation that you had with the D7 and the Keldon.
hmm
Keldon has what I would consider to be a not great maneuver dial. It's good.
it
It
turns
makes
like
up
a
for itself
bathtub.
in 100-degree firing arc. But all things considered, it moves like a boat.
hmm
And Klingon ships have one thing going for them, which is their ability to come about. And come about is a really dangerous ability. It means it's pretty much going to be firing on you all the time. If it goes past you, it's just going to turn around and keep shooting again. The Keldon's going to come charging at you full bore, shooting what it can, and then once it goes past you, then it's got to make this slow turnaround before it's able to come back. So if you're in a situation where you know that Keldon's about to have to turn around, well, the D7's the bigger threat because it gives you, you kill that, and then you have a round to position yourself so that way you can face off against the Keldon again because it's not going to be a threat for a couple of rounds.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, just measuring that risk versus reward it's something that's going to come with a lot more experience. But the one thing you can agree on really is get enemy ships off the board. Focus fire and get them done.
Amen.
Exactly. Um, I think that's good. We've gone over some action economy. How to spend your actions, how to spend your attacks. Now what to target with. Let's go on to the biggest question I have heard in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm new to the game. What do I buy? You work at Cool Stuff, don't you? You should have some good answers here.
Well, my cool stuff answer is buy all of them. But no, I'd say off the top of my head, there are definitely a few standouts. It really depends specifically what you're interested in. I mean, if you're just going to be playing casually with your friends, just buy the things that you think are cool and play those. But I mean, if you've watched the show and you really like specific ships or specific scenarios, or even specific episodes, buy the ships that are going to make you happy and make you enjoy those sort of things. But let's assume that you're going to be interested in playing competitively. Um, there are definitely some better ships to purchase, just in terms of bang for your buck. The ship is good, the cards that come with it are good. You definitely have some ships that, the ship is better than the cards that come with it, and vice versa. You've got some that the cards are better. But some situations, the card in the pack is worth purchasing the ship for, even if you're not going to run anything else. But
Those ones are pretty brutal.
that's getting really competitive.
hmm
Outside of the starter set, I'd say the Constitution class Enterprise is a good purchase, and with the most recent Federation ship with the Voyager has actually made that ship even more interesting because the captain for the Voyager, Janeway, actually synergizes with that ship really well. But it's a decent little ship. It's got a really good firing arc on it, 180-degree firing arc. It's cheap to put on the board, but it's got a good distribution of stats for the point value. And there are so many good cards that come in that one. You get Spock in there, you get Sulu in there, you get Montgomery Scott in there. I mean, there's some really, really, really solid cards that come with that one that are staples for a lot of people's lists.
Cheat
I mean,
death.
yeah, cheat death is a big deal.
hmm
That's a good way to win a game all of a sudden, particularly if you're going Alpha Strike and you've got a 9-skill captain. They kill you, big deal. Come next round, you're still there, and you get to shoot first. It's definitely a ship worth picking up.
Enterprise,
The
good deal.
Cardassian Keldon
Oh, I love that one.
is a fantastic ship. It comes with,
It's my
and it's a
favorite.
good ship on top of everything. But it comes with a lot of really useful cards. You get Gully Vec, you get Gully Cot. Gully Cot's a big deal. Free actions like that. Gully Vec allows you to reroll defense dice. You get the dorsal weapons array, which is awesome. And I think with the relentlessness of the recent board release, dorsal weapons array is going to become even more of a big deal because you need some way to be able to continually fire like the board does, because once you pass
Dorsal
it,
weapons array, 360-degree arc, three attack
yep.
dice.
And with boosts, I mean, let's say you've got Montgomery Scott along with that, it could be 2 extra dice on that. Throw it on the Valdor, you get a +1 from the Valdor's green maneuvers. I mean, there's ways to beef that 3 up to actually make it dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Bohica. Bohica's a big deal. If you've got a battle stations and you still roll a blank in the roll, well, cool, I have a battle stations. I'm just going to make that a hit now.
He is probably the one reason that my damage ability has gone up, because whenever I'm rolling battle stations with Bohica, I mean, almost every time, every dice is a hit, at least.
And then you've got the cloaking device. I mean, the cloaking device is I'd say best on the Keldon because it costs extra points on other things, but you can put it on other things, which is nice. Cloaking is nice because it increases the number of dice you actually get to roll for defense, and it's one of the only ways to really increase your defense value outside of something like Sulu or just taking the evade action, which, as we discussed earlier, is kind of suboptimal in most situations. I'd say as far as one of those where the cards is a little bit better than the ship's not terrible, would be the Apnex, because the Apnex gives you Varel. The Apnex also gives you the
Interface.
Interface generator. For some reason I couldn't think of the word for that one.
Cards that negate attacks, pretty much.
Yep, exactly. So just in terms of increasing your fleet's overall survivability, that's a really good ship pack to purchase. If you're a fan of cloaked mines, or the people that you play with allow you to play with cloaked mines, the Praetus is a really great purchase. And cloaked mines, for their point value, are really fantastic because they don't take an action to use. They can do a lot of damage over the course of a game, and they're cheap. And
we could spend the whole episode talking about those.
Yes, we could. But I mean, the Praetus for that purchase, I believe you get Valdor on the Praetus as well.
Yes, Valdor the captain.
Yeah, Valdor the captain on the Praetus is. I think the Valdor captain was nicer than he is now with the Borg, because unfortunately he's not particularly useful against the Borg. But he was, prior to the Borg coming out, a really good way to get just an additional +1 attack die if you were outside of. So that, coupled with, like I said, dorsal weapons array earlier, is just yet another attack die on top of that. Speaking of Valdor, the Romulan Valdor is easily one of the better ships in the game.
It's like a Klingon ship for Romulans.
Absolutely, it is. The one thing it's missing is a tech slot, but I feel like that makes it a really balanced ship, because with a tech slot, you would just put an interface on it, and it would be a monster.
It would survive everything.
But the ability to come about and having having the 2 green bank and the benefit of the +1 attack die after having the green somewhere in the round is really nice. Throw a Romulan pilot on that, and even if you didn't do a green maneuver to start with, you could do a green maneuver to get out of arc and make and still maintain your arc on somebody else and get the +1 attack die, which is really awesome. And the +1 attack die is
for those
great.
of you who don't know, Romulan pilot actually came with one of the prize Romulan ships. So if you can't find it, don't be worried. You're not going crazy. It's just hard to come by.
I take that for granted sometimes.
I know. New people come into the game. They don't know these wonderful things like our Ferengi ships.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned conditional surrender earlier, and conditional surrender is one of those things that only comes on the Ferengi ship that was the month 1 prize. That one, from what I understand, is cheaper online than a lot of the rest of them. But that's because really the only card that comes in it that's particularly useful is conditional surrender. I personally like the Ferengi ship, but you have to invest a lot of resources in it to actually make it comparable to something else out on the field. So all things considered, it's not great.
You mean Ferengi aren't the best tacticians in the universe?
I know. I really wish there were more Ferengi ships, but that's just me.
Hope there will be.
As far as more must-buys, I'd say at this point the Borg Sphere is absolutely a must-buy,
Hmm.
particularly for the next organized play event that's coming out with the Alien Web. That is almost built for the board to win.
Hmm. Now, see,
Uh,
I actually have to step in there because,
sure.
well, you are completely correct that the Borg have a huge advantage in the next OP with the because what they want to do is keep you in close and where you can't maneuver well inside the big web thing. But beyond that, I really would not recommend it for a new player. I would only recommend it if you're trying to be competitive. The reason is that the entire game centers around movement and positioning. Like it's an entire half of the game. Your movement, and then you take your actions, and then you shoot. So the thing with the Borg sphere is that it almost completely removes having to plan for all your movements and such. Like if you were raised on Klingon ships and you had to turn and keep people in your 90-degree arcs, you have some sort of experience there. If you are just getting in and starting on the Borg ships, then every other ship that has a firing arc, you're going to be, what am I doing? I never had to do this before. I could be anywhere and keep shooting at you. So, I mean, that would be my one thing. The Borg are very forgiving, but you're not going to learn a lot by flying them. Is going to be my one objection to that. Like it's still a great ship, it's still a great buy, but don't start with it if you want to get better at the game as a
Well,
in a whole. I would
that's a
say.
really good point in general. Just outside of this topic, I think one of the better ways to get better at this game is to invest in getting ships from different factions. I mean, sure, maybe I'm super a fan of the Romulans and I love playing Romulans all the time, but benefits my Romulan fleet that I know how to fly a Klingon fleet. I know how to fly a Federation fleet. I know what the cards do. I know what to expect. I know what tricks they have up their sleeves. Knowing the maneuver dials and knowing just even common tactics that a lot of Federation players use and or Dominion players or whatever really helps you as a player. So even if you do end up starting with a Borg ship, I still very much recommend that you get other things and play with those as well.
Definitely.
Because the Borg ship is, I mean, like you said, for a competitive scene, a great purchase. It really is. But in terms of you becoming a better player in general, I mean, hell, even if you're just interested in playing the board, you will become a better board player in knowing what to expect from other ships. You will know what ships are more of a threat. You will know what ships, that comes back to the, what ship should I target this turn? Do I target the thing that moves like a boat? Do I target the thing that's got a much more aggressive maneuvering?
Hmm.
Uh,
How really dangerous is that projected stasis field?
Exactly. Well, I mean, and Federation players a lot of times like to run torpedoes. So, whereas allowing a Dominion player to pass you is fine because it's going to be 2 rounds before they can shoot on you again, a Federation player, once they pass you, they're going to start shooting torpedoes out the back or drop mines on your head. And
Oh, I love those mines.
yeah, and then that's just as bad as I mean, just as bad. I mean, hell, if not worse than a Klingon ship being able to turn around. Because a Klingon ship turning around means he's not going to get to take any actions, whereas the Federation ship still gets to take all their normal actions and also poop some mines in your face.
Oops,
But
mines.
anyway, back to other ships that I think
Oh yeah.
are kind of must-haves. Um, out of the new wave, I also think the Voyager is a really great purchase.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Janeway is going to be an interesting captain to have. I think the ship's 360-degree firing arc is going to be nice to retain competitiveness with things like the Borg or other ships that are able to do 360 stuff because that's going to become more and more important as time goes on.
Hmm.
Um, I'd say some of the what I would consider kind of second tier good purchases, but not necessarily things that you need to kind of start with.
Hmm.
You've got things like the Groth, where you get the projected stasis field. The Reliant, I think, is definitely a much better. I'd rank that one higher than getting the Groth
I love my
because
Reliant.
the Reliant is again, kind of like the Constitution class, a really solid ship for its point cost, just the way that the points are distributed on it.
Mm-hmm.
The 180-degree firing arc with a 90-degree rear firing arc, which is fundamentally a 360-degree firing arc as long as you have something like torpedoes on you or mines.
Pretty much.
You also get con, and con with battle stations is a way to increase your action economy of, that goes back to the, I really want to throw crits at this thing. Well, if you roll battle stations, con turns battle stations into crits, which is pretty nice. You also get tribbles.
I love tribbles. That's
Tribbles
the
are
growth,
great.
though. That's the growth.
This upcoming organized play event, tribbles are extra great because most people aren't going to live past round 7 anyway, and that's the only time tribbles really become bad.
Mm-hmm.
Is round 7 forward. The Defiant. I feel like a lot of the cards that come on the Defiant aren't that wonderful, but the ship itself is actually a nice little solid ship with decent maneuvers on it. It's only got one red maneuver, which is a come about, and that's actually more important than I make it sound because most Federation ships don't have the ability to come about.
Mm-hmm.
So having the ability to just make a turnaround like that is it can be game changing. What else? I don't know if it's really fair to include the organized play prizes. I don't know that any of those really are that important to pick up. I mean, like I said, the Ferengi have one really good card, which is conditional surrender.
It seems like that's in all of the packs, Romulan pilot from the Romulan ship, or invaluable advice from the Marine ship, I think is pretty good. Or, can't think of anything from the Sutherland.
Yeah, the Sutherland wasn't that great. And honestly, I feel like the Barrage of Fire from the Klingon one is kind of overrated. I mean, at the time that it came out, it was kind of terrifying, but the ability to roll 8, 9 attack dice, that's exaggerating a little bit, but 7, 8 attack dice around with ships is not unheard of anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't need something like Barrage of Fire, which takes both of your ship's actions and gives you auxiliary power tokens. It's just, in terms of action economy, is not that great.
I like the ship itself, though. Probably the best card from that, then, though, would probably be Sinon. And we had a section on her in like one of the last episodes. Increasing your sensor echo. But yeah, so we went through. What did we go from the top? Enterprise, Voyager, Reliant. Tier 1.5-ish on the list. Maybe not quite as important as Enterprise and Voyager, but definitely a little higher than other things. The Keldon class, and definitely don't be afraid of multiple Keldon classes. I bought 3 and I love them all.
I bought 2. I don't see the need for 3 necessarily because most of the cards that come with it are unique. But I mean, I guess if you had the space for a 3rd dorsal weapons array in your fleet, that's definitely worth picking up.
Oh yeah, and I just like running 3 Keldon classes. I mean, solid ships all around.
Absolutely. Typically, I would prefer to throw a Kraxin in there to kind of soak some of the damage that the Keldons take because they only have 2 shields to start with.
True.
You can use the Kraxin to kind of soak bad crits basically. Let the Keldons take damage. That's fine, but crits can really be game changing, like you talked about with you get that stunned helmsman. That can cost you the game.
Oh yeah. So Kraxon is actually another pretty good investment. Maybe not one of your first investments, but one of the second ones.
I'd say Kraxin as a ship is good. The cards that come with it aren't that great. The ship itself, I would definitely say you don't need more than one of them, unless you're just like into Cardassians.
Enterprise, Voyager, Reliant, Keldon. I'm sorry, Coronac. I should go by their pack names. The Coronac, the kind of the Kraxon, definitely the Valdor, probably the Apnex. Negvar is a great one. I don't know if we mentioned that. That was the one that comes with Martok, who has a great ability, and Gowron is pretty good for Klingon builds.
Absolutely. I don't personally play Klingons very much. That's kind of my one where I would say weak point is I've not had a lot of experience playing as them. I've played against plenty of Klingon builds, but I don't know. I'm kind of a fan of putting things on my ships, and most Klingon builds are ship a dude, and that's it.
I have a captain. I'm going to shoot you.
Yes, which makes sense thematically. I mean, that's what Klingons did. But I mean, it's not even like their ships have a lot of slots for things.
Mm-hmm.
But
But yeah, I think that covers like some of like really the best ships you want to kind of start with. You get a wide array of maneuvers. You get really strong cards all around. Uh,
honestly, I'd say the Excelsior is also a really solid ship because you get Valtine in there, and I feel like the ship itself is decent. You get
oh yeah,
Transwarp, which can be a really big deal in competitive scenes,
Transwarp's a
particularly
good tech.
against things like cloaked mines, so that way you can try to get in the way of them being able to place cloaked mines in a good spot, or engage in round one, something silly like that. Because you could do that with the um, what was the flagship that allows you to kind of slingshot. So you
Oh,
move forward, and
yeah,
slingshot again, and you can get all the way across the board.
which is crazy, and I've done that myself more than once.
Yeah, I was the victim of that list.
Yeah, throw the Excelsior in there. Um, things probably not to recommend. The Borg is, your mileage may vary. Definitely good for killing stuff, not so good for learning stuff. But
Agreed.
apart from that kind of iffy one, you probably don't want to go with the battleship as one of your first ships. I mean, it's a good ship, but get it later. The Fifth Wing
Kronos
Patrol
One.
ship. Hmm?
The Kronos One is one of those that you could probably get away with not purchasing.
I have.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
it's
gotten away without purchasing it.
once more under the breach can be a good card. I also feel like Stex that comes with it is a card that most people don't use that could actually be really useful, particularly with the shift that I'm seeing, which is people running fewer cloaked things because we've got a lot more bigger ships that are able to take more damage.
Hmm.
And let's say you're running the Voyager where you drop your shields to have the ablative generator on it. Well, now all of a sudden you're vulnerable to people stealing your things. Stex is the only other card in the game outside of Kira Nearest that actually allows you to, and I could be wrong in that, but I think it's the only two of them in there right now that allow you to roll defense dice to actually protect the things that you have.
Hmm. It's a little limited, but yeah, I mean, it's one of the few, anti ganking cards is what they're usually called. But yeah, so some great first purchases, some other ones that you probably want to hold off on. Um,
I'd say that the
Anything else you
Vogue
want to throw?
you could probably hold off on because it has limited use. It can be useful, but I feel like overall it's one of those that like if you look at it, do the research on it, and you feel like that's the piece to your
That your
um,
fleet needs.
been missing.
Hmm.
That sure it could be good for you. The Gore Portus is another one of those that has kind of limited use. It does have the Breen Aid in there, but vast majority of the time I'd rather take Bohica over Breen Aid.
Hmm.
I guess the one nice thing about Breen Aid is it's not unique.
Oh yeah, have as many as you want. But yeah, I mean, got some good first choices there. Do your research. There is a spoiler on Board Game Geek. If you go to boardgamegeek.com, check out the files section. Go to the hot files, and you'll see like the rule book, and then right under that or right above that, I don't remember, is going to be the Star Trek Attack Wing spoiler. So you can look through that. You can see what cards are listed under which expansion. See what you kind of want to look forward to, and plan accordingly. I think that's good for our "What do I start with" section. Sound good to you?
Sounds good to me. I mean,
All right.
I covered all the bases that I found were important.
All right. So, I mean, let's go look for some question and answer. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat. I know Fall 69 has been waiting for this one since almost the beginning of the broadcast. Sorry about that. But question about Tholian Web. What's the best ships like the Sporg Sphere? Your thoughts, please. So, I mean, my thought is, well, the Borg sphere is going to be ridiculous because you're going to end up in a square-shaped field that's shrinking, and the Borg can move in a square shape and always be facing whatever it's fighting. I mean, That's what I've got for that for the most part.
I think things like just to try to say something that's outside of the Borg, because the Borg is definitely the very obvious answer for it.
Hmm.
Uh, I think things like the Federation or the Hideki fighters are going to be useful in there, simply because they've got such a great turn radius on them.
They've got
I
great.
mean, they've got comeabouts that are white, which is awesome.
Hmm.
And one of their weaknesses is actually sort of mitigated inside there, which is the fact that they can only shoot range 1 to 2. Um, once you're in that area in the middle there, you're going to be within range 1 to 2 of everybody. Now, whether or not you're going to be there around 7 is a different story, but um, I think some of the smaller ships that have some of the slightly better maneuver dials on them are going to be a little more competitive if you're worried about the long game. But see, that's I don't know. I'm even kind of finding myself disagreeing with myself there already, because most of those smaller ships aren't going to be able to survive the long game. Um, I really feel like, honestly, you have to find some way to throw enough dice at the board to kill them on the first pass.
Hmm.
Or at least, if not the first pass, if you have a way to come about and kill them on the second pass, do
14
it
hit
before
points is a
round
lot to chew
7.
through.
Because once you hit round 7, you're in that 12 by 12 square, and you're just not going to be able to outmaneuver the board.
Hmm.
It's just
Pointing the
not
wrong
even trying.
way and trying to survive, not running into the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want a more in-depth report, we did have a rather long session on it back on State of the Federation 2. You'll find that on my YouTube channel, youtube.com Delta Angel Fire. It's the same as my Board Game Geek account, and there'll probably I think I have it also up in the Board Game Geek video section. If you go to Board Game Geek, the Star Trek Attack Wing page, and go to the video section, it should be on there somewhere as well. So I mean, that's a good half hour of what ships are going to work, what kind of tactics can you use, how super broken are these cloaked mines going to be in this close range, and all of those other complaints that I would have. But yeah, I mean, that was the one question I saw. Um, let's see.
Better than
Before we go,
0.
let's see. Any kind of interesting news that I can think of. Tom Vassell actually had a video of a Q&A session where he actually has in his hands a Borg cube, but does not reveal any of the stats about it. Like the only thing we found out about it, it was that the named one is Borg Cube 138, and it has a scan of battle stations and the regenerate action.
Does it really have a battle stations on it?
No, not a battle stations. A scan, target lock, and regenerate.
I was going to say, what? That's broken.
Same as the other Borg, and it does
So,
also appear to have a 360 arc because I did not see any firing arc lines on it.
the Borg absolutely do not need a battle stations natively.
I know, right?
Nope.
Let's see. Tholian Web should be in most people's hands by now. I know, Eric, we're having our tournament tomorrow, and there's a couple other ones going on this weekend that I know of, so be prepared for that. Haven't heard anything about the Gorn yet, the arena episode, which is supposed to be somewhere near the end of the month. So
Yeah, I think that'll be early June when we'll actually start seeing events, because I think stores should start receiving their kits near the end of this month.
gotcha.
But yeah, end of this month, early next month.
Yep.
I really wish they would release some of the information about it so we know it's coming up.
Well, at least we'll know because people will make such a big deal out of it. They're like, look, the information is here.
Yes.
But yeah, nothing on the next wave of previews yet, but hopefully soon. Uh, Other than that, next episode of State of the Federation might be next week, probably next week. I'm making no promises because I might be going to tournaments 4 out of the 5 days of the next 5 days. So hopefully I will be back on Tuesday though. Maybe with Mike. We'll see who wants to take a shot in the dark with me against the looking at the board. Hi, Eric.
I was reading.
Oh, okay. We're going to, but the next episode will probably have a lot to deal with the board because that seems to be a pretty controversial topic right now, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So, yeah, Eric, if you want to go over one last time, who you are, if people want to find you.
I don't want people to find me.
Uh-oh.
No, my name's Eric Little again. I am the tournament organizer for Star Trek Attack Wing at the Cool Stuff Games store in Maitland. Um, I'm on Board Game Geek. I believe it's EJ Little.
I think so.
Yeah, it could be E Little. I kind of alternate those because with Eric Little and my username is EJ Little. I bet you'll never guess that my middle name starts with a J.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm very creative with my usernames, but yeah, I mean, I suppose if you want to contact me about anything on Board Game Geek, that would be the username to contact would be EJ Little. I don't know why anybody would want to talk to me, but you're more than welcome to.
Maybe you have inside information being working for one of the largest internet game distributors in the world.
I suppose.
It could work. You're more special than you give yourself credit for.
You would be surprised how little information that people have about board game distributors, because the one unfortunate and very frustrating part about board game distributors is they're very inconsistent. You'll ask for 600 of something, and they'll go, yeah, sure, we'll give you 600 of something, and then orders come in, and they give you 30 of them, and they're like, yeah, we sent you 30 of them. Oh, well, that's useful. Delays, that sort of thing. I mean, you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. It's still such a small niche industry that you guys know just about as much as we do most of the time.
We just gotta stick together. That's how it is.
Absolutely.
Excellent. But yeah, I mean, thanks for joining today. If anyone else out there wants to join the show, if you think you're a Zach Dorn master strategist, think you could go toe to toe with Data in this game, going for a draw, maybe not. But maybe you've won a DS9 of your own. I'd love to talk to strategists of all kinds. You can find me again on YouTube, youtube.com Delta Angelfire, also Delta_Angelfire on Board Game Geek. I highly suggest if you're looking for more things to learn about, like half the information in this broadcast you can find in the Armchair Admiral series 101 and 111. Basic actions, basic targeting, and things like that. If you want to brush up and learn some new strategies and raise your game to that next level. That is pretty much all I have. Any final words from you, co-host?
No, sir.
Cool.
I guess we can be super nerdy about it. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Yep. This will be on YouTube and the RSS feed in a little while. There will be links in descriptions. Maybe not in description below because we're on Twitch right now, but on YouTube there will be. So, yeah. Until then, play more Attack Wing, and may Q be generous with your dice.